Yo, what's up? So Ableton had an event showing their new Move product, and of course I went to it and asked a million questions. So here are my first impressions. So this is Ableton Move. It's their standalone idea generator groovebox. It's battery powered, super small, and super straightforward. Compared to Push 3, it's the little brother that has a different goal in mind. Where Push 3 is Ableton Live but away from the computer, Move is an idea starter and generator. You can import your projects from Move into Ableton Live, but not the other way around. And that's because of the limitations of Move. And there are some pretty big limits, so let's just jump straight into those. For starters, it's 4 tracks only, but in each track, you can load up different instruments. You get a wavetable, drift, a melodic sampler, and drum rack. So technically, if you wanted, you can load up 4 drum racks and have 16 cells each, giving you 64 tracks of drums, which you can then sample directly onto. So the 4-track limit does exist, but you can sort of hack it, if you will. Another limitation of Move is its MIDI port, which is USB-A and can only be set to MIDI in or out, not both. But good news, when connecting it with some hardware, I was actually able to get Move to be the main clock and sync up my Digitact over USB, but I couldn't go the other way around where my Digitact is the main clock. But I guess since there is no MIDI through on Move, I wouldn't really set it up this way. And another weird quirk is that when you're in this MIDI out mode, you can't set the MIDI out channel to just off. It needs to be either track 1, 2, 3, or 4. So on your next device, you need to make sure that you turn off MIDI note receive if you're just trying to get clock from Move. And whichever track you do select to be the MIDI out, it can still just be a regular instrument. So that's kind of nice. It's just going to be sending notes out also. Now, outside of that, there isn't really much else in terms of big limitations, but there are some massive, well, I guess they're not too massive, but there are some cons that revolve around the sampling side of things. For example, there's no threshold record start. I'd love this as a feature so I don't have to adjust the start point of all my samples. There's also no chopping, but the workaround is you copy paste pads in a drum rack and adjust the start points, or you select the pads as the sample comes in. You can do it like in real time, kind of like a lazy chop. But a huge con for me is that when you get the sample chop in this way, you can't filter down multiple pads at the same time, at least not yet, because each pad's settings in a drum rack are independent from one another. So then I thought, all right, let me just filter down the entire drum rack track. Each track has 2 types of effects, a send and an overall track effect. But a simple filter is not available as an effect for the whole track, which blows. So I can't do my filtered French house jams. Also, there's no quantized record lengths, which means there's no looping, and there are no dedicated audio tracks either, but you can hack it if you use a drum rack instrument and put your samples in those drum rack cells. Now look, I know I came in kind of guns blazing, but there is a lot to like about Move. The big thing that popped out to me when using it was how nice it was to have limitations. Move to me is like buying limitations, but with a good cause in mind. And it's kind of hilarious that this product came out after my last video, this one here, where I spoke about limitations and workflows and different products and the results that they induce. And this product, Move, very much falls in line into those categories. And it's also the reason why I really like the Novation Circuit tracks and rhythm. It's so slimmed down and focused that you just make music. There is nowhere else to go but jamming on the thing. And you're not going to do any crazy sound design or composing or anything too nuanced, but you'll get that idea out of your head quickly. Now, the big plus that Move has against products like Novation Circuit or the EP133 by Tinez is that it doesn't have what I call the now what moment, where you have a decent idea and then you want to finish it or expand on it a bit, but you're stuck to just the left and right outputs. So now what? I got to record all this in one at a time, muting all the tracks and all that stuff. It's just not fun, right? At least on Move, you can import the set that you're working on or your project into Ableton Live later. Now, to rattle off some pros, you get 32 sets or projects that change immediately. No loading or glitching, which is super awesome for live performances. I haven't, though, figured out how to get it to load at the end of a bar. So it just loads and goes, but with some perfectly timed presses, you can make it pretty smooth. Also, Move has 64 gigs of internal memory, which is totally nuts to me for something at this price, I think. But I also learned that 12 of those gigs are reserved for the operating system, which, I mean, also says a lot about what's going on in this tiny device, right? But then it also kind of says that it's not really 64 gigs. On their site it says it's 64 gigs, but I kind of wish it said 50 gigs instead or something. It's a small thing, but whatever. Apple gets away with it too. Now, the user interface is designed extremely well. I watched one person perform on it and pretty much understood how it worked, but with that said, it shows how simple it is, right? Or extremely straightforward, or in other words, limiting. Also, Move has a capture button which grabs your idea from the past in case you forgot to hit record. This also works with overdubbing and automation, which I didn't even realize in general. And to me, it feels like a step closer to the world where a record button doesn't even exist anymore, with things like skip back on the SP404 or capture on here or on the MPC. Now, Ableton's capture is MIDI only, of course, not audio. That's how capture has always been. Another big thing is that there is an undo and redo button. Thank you very much, super handy. The pattern lengths, this is a weird one. They are up to and possibly more than 128 bars, but on my current firmware, I only have up to 16 bars, but I swore I saw more than that at the event. And the pads are velocity sensitive, which is super awesome. They feel great. It also has wavetable and drift, both synths by Ableton that are built in, and they sound super awesome. Move also has a built-in microphone, so you can sample directly into it, and you can also sample directly into it with the audio input. And lastly, like not mind-blowingly cool, but pretty neat and a step into the future, is that it has Wi-Fi, so updates happen over the air and you don't need some third-party app on your computer. Also, the Move Manager is super dope, which sends all your sound samples and projects and everything over the air to a browser site that you can then download and continue in live or other devices. Now, there's a lot to Move that still needs to be explored, and I was super curious about it, which is why I ended up buying one on the spot, day of the event, at full price, by the way. So subscribe if you want to see more on Move in future videos. And all right, my friend, I appreciate your time. Peace.